Before viewing video lessons, it is important to read the textbook using the learning guide as your turn-by-turn directions. Then use the learning guide to take organized notes in your own words with examples and pictures. Continuing Human Memory, Chapter 7. In the previous video, we talked about a model for the input, encoding, storage, and retrieval process of memory. And we talked about how sensory input enters sensory memory, and if we pay attention to it, it can move into short-term memory. However, it only lasts about 20 seconds unless we work on it. And that work is called working memory. And the work that we do in working memory is what actually moves information into long-term memory. So what we're going to do now is focus on what happens with working memory. It's important to look at this because it impacts how well we can retrieve memories. So working memory is what you are consciously focusing your attention on, thinking about inside your head, and actively manipulating. So it's the type of memory that you're using right now as you're focusing your attention on this slide, you're thinking about it, what it says, and you're thinking about how best to write that down in your own notes. Now what's going on there are multiple simultaneous processes. So within working memory, we have 4 different processes going on all at once. We're going to go through each one of these. The first one is the phonological rehearsal loop. This is the part of working memory where you can rehearse or say something over and over and over inside your head, and where you're kind of verbalizing or thinking about auditory information. So when you look up a phone number and then you say it over and over and over and over in your head as you go to the phone, you're using your phonological rehearsal loop. When you're thinking about a song, da 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 da, over and over in your head, that's going to be some auditory information on the phonological rehearsal loop. Sometimes it's helpful to think about this like a record that can play verbal or auditory information over and over in your head. So part of what working memory is doing is thinking about information that can be easily verbalized or heard. But not all information can be verbalized or heard. Sometimes it's visual spatial information. And so you also have a visuospatial sketchpad inside working memory. This is where you can temporarily hold on to and manipulate visual and spatial images. So for example, imagine, hopefully you're not in this room right now, imagine your kitchen. And then imagine what it would look like if you turned the kitchen table in a different direction, or if you put it in the middle of the floor instead of the corner, or the corner instead of the middle. Even if you've never actually put the table in those places, you can still picture that in your mind's eye, and you can picture those manipulations. That's part of the visual and spatial sketchpad. So you can think about that working memory desk that we talked about last time as having 2 things sitting on top. One, a record player that can play auditory and verbal information over and over, and the other, a visual spatial sketchpad you can use to manipulate and think about visual and spatial images. Now, this desk is going to need a CEO. And so sitting at the desk is the central executive system. This is essentially where the CEO of you sits. When we talked about the brain in Chapter 3, we talked about the central executive system being in the frontal lobe of the brain, primarily in the prefrontal cortex. So this part of working memory helps you do several things. It helps you focus your attention. It's the part of your brain that's saying, "Hello, this looks important. Pay attention." So it keeps that attention focused, which can keep information in short-term memory. It can also help you deal with distractions. So while you're sitting here paying attention to this video, other noises may be going on in the background. Maybe the dog walks through. There's other kinds of distractions going on. The central executive says to short-term memory, "Ignore that, forget it, pay no attention, keep yourself focused on this schoolwork." So by minimizing the distractions, it helps to keep your attention focused. And while it's doing that, it's helping you to reason and make decisions about what to do with this sensory information that you're getting. Now, the CEO of you, Central Executive System, has one teensy tiny problem. In order to make decisions about what to do with this sensory information that's coming in about what you're experiencing in this moment, it needs to know what your past experiences with similar situations have been. But the CEO is not going to stop steering the ship and run off to the file room to pull the files. So your central executive needs an assistant. And that assistant is called the episodic buffer. So one of the big things that the episodic buffer is going to do is it's going to run into the long-term memory storage facility and pull out the information from your past experience the central executive needs in order to make a decision about what to do in any particular moment. And so it kind of spends its time running back and forth between that working memory desk and long-term memory storage. It is also the part of working memory that actually takes what makes it to working memory and puts it into long-term memory. So as we talked before, just because you paid attention to something doesn't mean it's going to go into long-term memory. It's actually the episodic buffer that's going to be able to move information into long-term memory. So if we put all of these pieces together, what we're going to see is that the sensory information that's coming in, the verbal and auditory information that you pay attention to, is going to be played on that phonological rehearsal loop on the conscious working memory desk. The visual spatial information, what you're seeing, is going to be on that visual spatial sketchpad. The CEO is going to keep you focused on that information while at the same time the episodic buffer is going to bring information from long-term memory to help you make decisions about what to focus on and what to do with what you're seeing and hearing. So let me give you an example. You pull up to a stop sign in your car and you're going to gather information about what's going on in that environment right then in that moment. You may listen to see if there are sirens. That would affect my decision in that moment. You're going to look. Are there cars coming from either direction? Should I stay here where I'm at and wait for another car to go? Or am I free to go ahead and turn at this intersection? So the visual spatial sketchpad is going to look to what I see to my left. Perhaps there's a car coming a little bit in the distance. And then it's going to look to see what I have to the right. When it looks to the right, inside my mind's eye, which is that visual spatial sketchpad, I'm still going to hold that image of the car to the left. And I'm actually going to progress it down the road. I'm going to be kind of estimating where that car is going to be while my eyes are turned to look to the right. The CEO, Central Executive System, is going to be making the decision about whether or not I should pull out or whether I should wait for that car. That decision is going to be influenced in part by my past experiences. Sometimes I've had experiences in which I stay, and then when I turn back to check on that car to the left, I regret it. Oh, I thought they were going to be right on top of me. They're going so slow, but now it really is too late. Now I just have to sit here and wait. Oh! Or I may have had experiences where I thought the car was going slower and I pulled out, and maybe I didn't have an accident, but maybe I had to kind of floor it to avoid getting hit. So all of those past experiences are going to be used by the central executive, thanks to the episodic buffer running to the file room, to make that decision in that moment. So we've got these 4 processes that are kind of going on all at once, and once I'm done focusing my attention, let's say I've turned or I haven't turned, the episodic buffer is going to take those memories from long-term memory as well as the new experience I just had in pulling out or staying, and it's going to put it into long-term memory. That's how it gets there. Now, the capacity of your working memory, how much you can do in working memory, varies quite a bit. So how much new sensory information I can handle and focus on is going to be influenced in part by how much working memory is using long-term memory. So that desk has a limited capacity. If I'm really digging into the depths of my long-term memory, then I'm going to have a limited capacity on what I can focus on right now here in this moment. It's also going to vary by person. It's also going to vary by things like, how tired are you right now? So when you're tired, your working memory capacity is smaller than when you're well rested and alert.